Hello, hello. I believe we are live here, ladies and gentlemen. Looking over at the YouTube page on my side screen here. We shall see what happens. If you're in the chat with us, please let us know if audio, visuals, all that good stuff is rocking and rolling. We'd really appreciate that. If not, we will just assume that everything is good to go. But while we're doing that, I'll introduce my guest today, Matt Knighton. Brother, can't tell you how much of a pleasure this is and an honor to have you on the channel, man. I've been watching your stuff for a long time. How are you, man?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. It's great to be here. Look, it's good. It's early. I'm here in Australia. Sun's not up yet, just after 6 a.m. But I'm charged and ready to go, man.
I feel,
I'm excited to talk to you about all things WordPress and agency, and it's great to be here.
hell yeah, brother. I recently, I was telling you over offline, I was got a live stream tomorrow actually, and I've live streamed last week with or week before with one of your fellow countrymen, Alan Blair, over at WP Easy. You guys, it's tough. 14-hour difference. I apologize in advance here. It's tough to find a good window there, but if you guys are used to getting up early, I guess it's not that bad. But I appreciate it nonetheless. It's fun.
Yeah, we get an early start on the day, right? We're at the
Yeah,
start of the earth, so
yeah, yeah. That is something. Well, like I said, man, appreciate you being here. For you guys, just tuning in, just I'll give a little bit of context, and then I definitely want Matt to kind of dive into everything that he's talked about. So you guys probably know if you've watched any of my stuff that I've been in WordPress since like 2018, more so into the community now in the last 6 months to a year and everything like that, meeting incredible people like Matt. He's got a great channel. The link is, I think, in the title and then also in the description. You go check it out, MRKWP. And it's funny because I found your channel, Matt, like honestly, I want to say like probably in my infancy days of probably whenever you started, because like I mean I've seen your channel for a long time. I know you're using Cadence, and we'll talk about all the sort of different stuff that you're using now. But definitely, I have known about you for longer than you've known about me, which is really awesome to see that we're kind of coming together now and having this conversation. And for you guys listening at home, um, obviously we just made the connection just from YouTube and Twitter and whatever else. And we had a good chat the other day, kind of pre-gaming this call and this meeting here. And I learned a lot about Matt, and I'm excited for him to tell you guys about it because a lot of experience. And somebody young like myself, like I'm trying to get into this. I know there's a lot of you guys out there trying to build up freelancing businesses, agencies, whatever. Matt is a wealth of knowledge. So I want to get us off to a good start here and saying that because I just, like I said, appreciate you being here, man. Lots of good stuff to chat about.
yeah, thanks, Mark. And look, it's yeah, sometimes I forget. When you're a small channel like myself, you don't realize that, hey, those thousands of views on your videos that have been up for years, they're real people,
Yeah,
and sometimes we forget that. We look at it as just a little number, but there's
yeah,
still a heck of a lot of people out there that you get to help through YouTube and online. And, sometimes I just have to pinch myself and go, hey, just remember
yeah,
every single one of those numbers, it's a real person.
yeah, yeah, 100%. We got a couple comments here, and guys, yeah, if you're here and you want to have any questions, drop them in the chat. We got a little bit of an agenda here, but we're definitely willing to kind of move around on that as well. Channel, let me drop Matt's channel in the chat. If you type in MRKWP, that's it. But I'll also throw a link in the chat here for you guys as well. Definitely go over, oop, subscribe to Matt there as well. Um, okay, apparently my audio is a little low too. Let me see if I can adjust that. We shall see. Guys, let me know if that's any better. I'm definitely not an audio technical wizard, even though I kind of play one on the internet here. Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, here's what I think. If you want to just dive in, Matt, we can kind of talk about it. So if you want to give the people just kind of like a brief overview of kind of like who you are, your background and skill set. Obviously, I know some of these answers. I think your origin story into the tech world and into WordPress is kind of interesting. So if you want to kind of give a little spiel on
Yeah,
that, I think
sure.
that'd be great.
Yeah, so I guess the main points really is look, I run a micro agency now. My agency has been varying sizes through the life of the agency, but I started as a freelancer, and I've really been coding for 20 years now as a web developer. Bit over really in terms of total code and IT, but that gives you a bit of an understanding. And the agency has gone through different sizes over those years. We've had up to sort of 10, 15 staff at some times, and now I'm at 3 at the moment.
Okay.
So my background skill set really is programming and analytics. And if I think about what got me into web, I used to work at a bank, a big bank called JP Morgan. I was a business analyst there, right? And I was good with numbers, but I didn't get to be creative. And I'd been doing a lot of stuff on the side with Flash and things like that, really back in the day when Flash 5 had come out, and, there was all these cool things with macro media before Adobe even.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in my office overlooking Sydney Harbour with this beautiful view on the 44th floor. I had floor to ceiling glass, as an analyst at JP Morgan, biggest bank in the world.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this just sucks. I really don't like this. This is boring me because I don't get to be creative. And web was this wonderful marriage between analytics, the analytical coding, logic side of things, bringing creative together. And that's what got me started in web development. And I did my first WordPress site not long after that. It would have been about 2 or 3 years after that. So we're talking, 2007? 2007 would have been my first WordPress site that I built. And at that time, I'd pivoted over, become a technical director for an agency in Sydney, leading a team of developers for them on my freelance time. And that was the first WordPress site that I built, and then kind of stepped out in 2008 to really go full on at turning my freelance life into an agency life.
Yeah.
And I now live in Parks, a place in the central west of New South Wales. To give you an idea, my town has sort of 10 to 15,000 people. There's one set of traffic lights.
Wow.
I never queue up in traffic. We have all the things that you need, like a hospital and shopping centre and all those sorts of things. But this morning when I walk my dog down the street there, I will pass more kangaroos than I'll pass people.
Oh my.
And, it's a great place to live. And the internet enables that along with WordPress, because I get to reach people all around the world, and do work for them right here from this small town that otherwise I wouldn't get exposed to anyone. So it's been an amazing thing. And yeah, I really appreciate being able to share with your audience, that journey, a little bit of that journey and some of that knowledge I've learned.
That's dope. Yeah. So I know nothing about Australia, obviously, and just the area, the area in general. But like that's super. That's, I mean, that is just again, I just from my perspective, I always lived in the United States, literally like Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I don't know how many people are here, but like a couple 100,000 or something. I don't know, but like that in and of itself, again, like you said, is one of the cool things about what we do, that we can kind of touch like kind of everywhere, everything, no matter what we're trying to do there. I mean, just right off the rip though, how, because we'll dive into this more, but like with that point in mind, I think a lot of people, maybe in the United States or in general, like they think like local businesses and they think websites. When you're a
Hmm.
small business, maybe you're going to literally just start knocking on doors and things like that. Is that like kind of basically not available then, depending on where you're at, and like in somewhere like Parks, or how's that? How do you think that plays out a little bit?
Yeah, look, there's still local businesses around, and I use certain techniques to do that. So one of the
Mm-hmm.
things I found was that there was no Google photographer out here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that means for doing the internal 360 VR style
Mm-hmm.
photography for Google Maps, there was nobody out here. So I got certified. So I'm the only one out here this side of a mountain range we call the Blue Mountains. So from Sydney, you pass the Blue Mountains. I'm one of the only guys out here that can do that. And that means some of the other bigger towns around, people call me and I drive to those places to do photography for those shops and things like that, and then introduce myself that way. On top of that, because of where we are, people, I guess for local businesses, I would have 100-mile radius from where I am of local businesses that would reach out to me when they want to meet somebody. Within that area, there's probably 300,000 people.
Okay.
So it's a bit bigger.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't do that much that's local. I still work a lot in Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, Perth, other big companies. I've got an agency network that I use. So yeah, more and more, the client can be anywhere.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, obviously that's amazing that we can do that. So it's dope that if you can leverage that, you gotta, right? So, um, hmm, interesting. Okay, so let's go back to that. You said you built your first website your first WordPress website in 2007, right? Now I
Yeah.
know a little bit more of the details like we said earlier, but like when I think you told me you've been coding since a very young age, right? Like
That's
actually
right.
programming and things. So like that, tell me, walk me through that, and then walk me through like kind of the beginning of your journey. I think you were saying like you were using different platforms as well in addition to WordPress. So how did
Mm.
that trajectory go? Did you start there? Did you start with WordPress? What was the trajectory like?
Well, when I started, there was no WordPress. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
as a kid, six,
Mm-hmm.
7 years old, we got given our first computer. My dad was an engineer. And at that time, on a VIC 20 and things like that, if you wanted a game, you would generally get a book out and type all the code in to play a game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I started at sort of 7 years old
Mm-hmm.
doing that kind of stuff. So I'd get a book, write all the code out, and you'd end up with, a car like something where you've got a car going along dodging donkeys or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just a
Yeah.
simple little game like that.
Mm-hmm.
Snake games and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I kind of started. And then um, later on, when I was about 10, we got a DOS machine. And that was a 286 at the time. And that then meant that I started, on the black screen command line, writing stuff on that instead, which I still use a lot of those commands today when I'm SSHing on the servers. Um, and that then started me again, still doing a lot of gaming and things, but I always could type. I was already typing up my assignments and things when everyone else was still handwriting them. So
Mm-hmm.
then like I said, I left the bank because I was really enjoying doing Flash and PHP backends. And at that time, it was literally just custom stuff. Post some data from Flash to a backend that you've coded up, connected to databases, and send data back. So from then on, I started to work with things like Laravel, Code Igniter, Cake PHP, Joomla. I did a lot of stuff with Joomla in the early days. Spoke at a lot of conferences for Joomla. Ran a meetup for those guys for a little while. And this is before you even had custom post types in WordPress. So WordPress was strictly blogging, and the CPT time hadn't happened, and the age of WordPress that we're in now hadn't yet started.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was then doing really big builds for some big telecom companies and things. We'd grown the agency to a decent size. We're turning over around $1 million a year in projects, and yeah, that's when we just built this really big project, $1 million project. We had a team of 5 devs on that site. We got to the end of it. It's got e-learning, video processing tools, chat, all this stuff for this large telecom company in Australia. And I pulled the team together as a bit of a, hey, we've done it, we've finished. Now, if you could do it again, what would you do and how would you build this? And everyone in the team said I would have built it with WordPress. And I was like, really?
Mm-hmm.
Why would you build this with WordPress? And they just said, because so many of the things that we had to code up are already in it. And we could have easily just added microservices at the back end and done the same thing. And we would have saved ourselves a lot of time if we would have just made it with WordPress. And I was like, damn, WordPress has changed a lot then since 2008, 2007, when I did a couple of simple blogs.
Yeah.
And I looked at it, realized where it had got to. And since then, I've been really pushing hard into the WordPress space.
Yeah.
And that's really what brought me to where I am today, where we decided, hey, I don't really like doing big projects, big enterprise projects. I prefer to do medium enterprise. There's heaps of that in WordPress and integration, and that's what we do predominantly now. Is medium sized companies, WordPress, ecom, integration stuff. Yeah.
Hmm. And I mean, okay, I knew this story before the viewers did. Obviously, the $1 million project. I was absolutely blown away when we talked about that the other day. And to put that in perspective too, that was that in 2017, 2016, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Around 2016, 2017. Yeah.
Okay, so you did a $1 million project, and that was mostly in like Laravel, like more custom, like crafting
Yep.
that whole project.
Custom learning management system with video encoding systems on the back of it.
Okay. And then obviously you have the talk with them, and they're like, we should have just done this in WordPress because like a lot of the boilerplate and all that sort of stuff is there, and that's just like we got to dive into that a little. I know it's not specifically WordPress related, but like I mean, just kind of like at the I think anybody in the WordPress space or even the pseudo like development area space there, like how do you a good question is, how do you get $1 million project? Obviously, it's a loaded question, but like, how do you get to that point? We are talking about a little bit before we went live. What if we start to talk about that part of the experience and how you get there? What would be some of the things that you would just say like right off the bat?
Well, that particular pitch, rarely do you actually say, "Hey, here's our ending budget of $1 million."
Yeah.
So when you get $1 million project, the first thing is you end up with quite a lot of discovery work,
Mm-hmm.
and you've generally done some things with a client beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
This particular client, they'd already probably spent 200, 300 grand with our agency with varying different things.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular project led to my team having an office inside their office. We're talking, for the US listeners, you'd be thinking of an equivalent of an AT&T or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
big company. And there ends up being an MRK team inside there because you've been able to build trust with that organization that, hey, here's somebody who can get things done quickly, can pivot, and can make sure that they deliver value for our organization. And here's a big budget to build this particular project. Um, and there's contingency and everything in there. So we ended up spending 980 actually on that particular project. And yeah, it was. I mean, how do you actually get $1 million project? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, hey, it's just the same way you get a $10,000 project. You go and pitch.
Yeah.
It just means that you've got discovery and you've got a bit more time and a bit more effort to get that particular deal. That being said, that project was so difficult and so challenging that it wasn't that profitable. It's not like I was able to make, 200 grand or something net profit at the end of it. The profit
Mm-hmm.
wasn't that good
Yeah.
because it was just such a hard project to deliver. But we delivered it. We did a great job. And yeah, I learned that I don't really like doing $1 million projects that take 12 months.
That's really a good insight there too. So did you say that took a year to do that?
Yeah, it was a 1 year project. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And was that and okay, so paint me that picture a little bit more. Like you're literally in their office. You have like your team has a space in their office. And is that like the only work you're working on that whole year basically?
Some of my team were still doing other projects as well. So three of my team were working on this particular element. There was one other guy, Sean. He was working on some other stuff, which was around SharePoint. So we had a guy working on, like, they had this big SharePoint intranet. For those people that don't know, SharePoint's like a big Microsoft kind of intranet tool that you'd use for sharing information and that. And every single department had a little microsite in SharePoint. So he was working on that stuff. And he would go and work with each of those individual teams and say, hey, what help do you need, on your SharePoint things? And he was really doing a bit of QA for us as well. So he was really doing SharePoint and QA more, less than coding. The rest of the team, we were doing the full continuous integration stuff. So continuous integration is when you build your project and you write tests as you go. They're automated testing tools. You then push it into a thing called JIT. We were using GitHub at that point in time. And then there's this runner thing runs, a process runner that runs all the tests. And if all the tests pass, it will automatically deploy it to the server.
Mm-hmm.
So as we go and create more and more code and we find bugs, you write a test that proves the bug, then you fix the bug. Then if that bug ever recurs again, your code can't get onto the live server. So the only way to deploy the code is through the continuous integration flow. So we set all of that up in this particular instance, and it was fun. It was a great system to build. In many ways, all those technical things, I loved it. It was just such a big project and so many technical challenges that it was really like it was exhausting.
Yeah.
There was many late nights that we had. But it was good, like, because you're working in a corporate, so like, hey, you do late night, and then the caterers come past and set up a table for you with dinner and everything, and all the cutlery's out with your food and all that kind of thing for the team at 8 o'clock. It wasn't like, hey, we're ordering pizzas in and sitting in a garage here. Like, it's an enterprise environment. You've got your own, like, this campus has its own restaurants and everything. It's one of the biggest campuses in the world for a company, and so it was quite comfortable. It's just that, when it comes down to it, you had no choice but to deliver. There was very technical things that we had to do. So that's the way the team looked at that time. We continued to do a lot of projects for those guys until really one of my big allies in the business moved out, and they were just doing cost cutting and things like that. And I didn't really want to pursue going through the whole pitch all over again. So we decided to step away and start doing more medium enterprise WordPress stuff at that point in time.
Hmm. There's obviously a lot to unpack there. I need to ask this question though, because there's this concept that I've been thinking about a lot recently and I think you're an interesting case study for it specifically because you, correct me if I'm wrong, because this is how I'm reading, like, an understanding and interpreting like your background. You came into all of this as like a technical person, like you, like more of a technician, like you're a programmer, a developer, like you, that was like your skill set that you kind of had, like literally since you were young, like you were always interested in the technical side of things and being creative in a way in that and expressing it that way. So then when you get to the point where, you're at the bank, you hate it, you want to be like dealing with like Flash at that time and just exploring different things. When you move to the next phase of that, there's a transition there that I think is there's at least two ways. You either have a skill and then you build a business around that skill, or you want to build a business and you don't have a skill, so you build a business where like you couldn't actually do it. You know what I mean? Like, so in your case though, like you had a skill and it seems like you built a business and a team around that. I think there's a lot of people in this industry that learn how to build websites and then they want to build a business. I don't see it too much the other way around where it's like, I want to build a web design business, but I don't know how to build websites. So it's just kind of like a general conversation around like, is one better than the other? Or what do you like in your experience? How did you learn to be a business person? Like, what are some things that maybe you did there, or, did you ever try to remove yourself more from the business as you had a bigger team so you weren't doing all the work? I know that's a problem that I have, many other people have. So just like some general thoughts
Yeah,
around that.
look, I mean, there's a lot of people that always say that you need to work on your business, not in your
Mm-hmm.
business. It's like, who
Mm-hmm.
says?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Yeah.
I didn't see Warren Buffett not talking to his traders.
Yeah.
He's always in the business.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's a self-made millionaire because he loves what he's doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is just because somebody else says, hey, you need to work on your business, not in your business, doesn't mean it's the answer for you.
Mm-hmm.
I love coding.
Mm-hmm.
Before we even started today, I was doing little CSS tweaks and things like that, and checking out some stuff on my personal website, thinking of different things that I want to do. And I don't want to delegate it. I want to do it. I like doing it, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So the thing is, what you've got to really start to understand, I think, is where your superpower is. We're up here, it's early in the morning, and I don't have to think, oh damn, I got to get up early. That doesn't happen, because I enjoy the work that I do. And it means that I can outwork people in my superpower, which is writing code, crunching things out, making sure that things integrate well, and sticking to very complicated things without getting tired. Now, other people have that ability with design. If I'm sat there for ages just doing just design and picking colors and things like that, I don't have that superpower. My wife does. She's fantastic at that. She works in the business with me. She's really good at that sort of stuff. Checking every page for minor alignment and spacing issues and all that sort of stuff. That does my head in.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's, Julius, one of the other guys in our team. He's really good at quality control and really checking all the different things when it comes to care plans, making sure things work properly, checking all the error logs and all that kind of stuff. He loves doing that. He's really good at it. But, I can't give him the coding jobs that I do. So the thing that I reckon is if you grow in a team, it's always difficult. I haven't had that much success in growing big teams. And keeping my business that size because I like working in the business. I don't really want to be a business where I don't do the work. I like doing it. That's why I started doing it. So I think that really what it comes down to is as you grow, you've got to work out what works for you and make sure that you're happy each day doing what you're doing. If you look in the mirror every day and you're hating what you're doing for the day, you need to change something. And if you're growing your business and you start hating it, then you need to change. And that means either you need to find someone to hire somebody, or you need to take a strategic retreat and work out, okay, what am I going to do here to make sure that I'm enjoying my work? Because one thing I know is that when I meet with customers, they can tell I love what I do. They can tell when it comes across like, hey, I'm actually looking forward to building your website for you. I'm excited about fixing these issues for your business because I love doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the main thing, is like, hey, if you've got the passion for it, you're always going to do better than somebody else, who doesn't have that passion. So it just comes down to identifying that within yourself. Um, and if you guys want a book on that, there was this book called Work Energy by Harmon. What's his first name? Harmon was his last name. They're the guys that do income, that passive income channel. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, Jim Harmon. Uh, and anyway, in that book, he talks about like, how he was being a lawyer, didn't like it, and ended up blogging and doing a camera thing, blogging, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
and turned it into a great business. Why? Because he loved it. He had energy. He's got work energy to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
as a result, when the grind's on and the money's not coming in the way you hoped it would, you're still able to kick goals because you love what you're doing. And even if the money's not coming in, would you be working on web and coding? If the answer is no, then you might have to start to think about it a bit more and say, what would I do and how does that fit in my business?
Hmm. I mean, that's a great perspective, and I think you and me are alike in a little bit because it sounded like you hated what you were doing when you were like an employee. I also went through that as well. I think many people went through that, and they were just like, I'd rather just do my own thing that I enjoy doing for myself, perhaps, rather than like work for somebody else and just hate the stuff that I'm doing, even if I'm a nice, floor to ceiling glass office, in the middle of Sydney. So that super does resonate with me. Um,
Yeah. And look, if you can avoid the pain of having heaps of stuff and still be successful and enjoy life, see,
mm-hmm.
success, a lot of people think, hey, having a successful agency means it can mean whatever you want it to mean for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? It doesn't have to mean anything based on anybody else's parameters.
Right.
Success is simply setting a task and completing it. That's success. I successfully completed a task. That's it. You know
Right.
what I mean? So you set your own success, is what I say to everybody. If you can do it as a one-man show and you enjoy it, then go for it. If you can do it as a little 3-5 man team like I'm doing, go for it. But just make sure that your definition of success suits who you are and you're true to yourself. Because at the end of your days, you don't want to be looking back going, man, I wasted all that time hating most of my days, being grumpy to everyone around me in the goal of trying to make a certain budget or win a certain size project. Because I tell you, when you go and win that project, it's likely going to taste like, eating sand.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be something that brings you joy. So, you just got to make sure that you're true to yourself in those terms. And man, I love doing websites. I love doing stuff with WordPress. I stay up late to get onto the live streams with meetups and things like that because I like it.
Yeah.
It's like waking up early in the morning to watch sports or something. You know what I mean? For me, it's
Yeah.
kind of, I enjoy it. So I just encourage people to think of it that way, and build your team around you based on trying to staff weaknesses, but also making sure you have enough in common with people to make sure that your workplace is enjoyable. We have a lot of more introverted people. I find it quite exhausting doing minor chit chat kind of stuff. I'm not really that kind of guy. Some people are extrovert; they love being around crowds and things like that. I get a bit tired doing that. So we have generally a more introverted group of people. Um, but yeah, that's just the kind of way that we've kind of worked out. Now, that means that if you've got someone who's extroverted, like my sister, she's super extroverted, right? She struggles working from home because she needs that office time.
Mm-hmm.
She's tried it. She's worked in marketing stuff. She's a absolute genius when it comes to marketing, and particularly B2B stuff. But she needs a team around her. So for her, the answer wasn't starting a micro agency, because she was feeling too isolated at home. Whereas for me and my wife, we're like, yeah, isolate me. I'd much prefer not to be in the office having chit chat around a coffee and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like it
Yeah.
was just a different way of thinking about it.
Definitely. Yeah. There's another good comment here from Paul Burgess too. There's another one, Company of One by Paul Jarvis. I've heard of that one as well. Scaling or not. That's a good thing. Matt, I love your perspective on this, man. And obviously, just with the amount of experience that you have, you've come to understand a lot of these things. And I think there's a lot of people out there that either tell you got to go one way or the other. I really just, like I said, appreciate your message on just do it the way that you want to do it. But I gotta ask, like, were you always like that, or did you seem kind of like almost like introspective, a little philosophical with some of this stuff, and like like you're more like you understand that it's not always one. You don't have to do it just one way. You're all about, like, your message of finding your superpower, doing the things you love makes total sense. Did you acquire that over time, or was that something that you always had, or what do you think there?
Yeah, look, the superpower thing, um, I really kind of learned what that was. Of course, there's been so many people over the years that I've learned from,
Mm-hmm.
just so many. To say that I came to this point on my own would be wrong. I do have an analytical brain. I'm wired that way. Um, the reason why I was working at the banks is they tested me and found that when it comes to data patterns, I was in like the top 0.5% of the population. I just see things in data that other people don't.
Mm-hmm.
Why? I don't know. I can't
Mm-hmm.
tell you why.
Yeah.
I have no idea why, Mark. I just do.
Mm.
It's like,
It's your superpower.
yeah, I can't even describe how I acquired such a skill. I just don't know. But that meant that, I learnt to code JavaScript in 2 days. I just bought a dummies book, sat down and just did it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that makes sense.
Mm.
And a lot of stuff like that, like code, I just sat down, just pick it up and go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Why I find it easy to see that pattern, I don't know. But I do. And that, it's I guess, seeing those things means that I also see patterns in my own life. As somebody, like, I'm a Christian, I'm a believer, and when I read the Bible, I see patterns as well that other people don't see.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like, it's just part of who I am. So I guess what I've noticed over the time is as I look at things and I start to take in this knowledge, I just see patterns that form. And the one pattern that I notice is that every single founder of every company is completely different to the other one. If you listen to the guy that's running Nvidia now, he's completely different to the guy that's running Google. And he's different to Warren Buffett. And he's different to Steve Jobs. And he's different to, the guys running Exxon. And they're all different. They've all got different skill sets and stuff. They're all just different people. And they all do things slightly different. There's certain parameters that are the same, but everyone's different in their own way. And I just realized, hey, these guys, like, they've got confidence in their own ability, and they go in there making sure they can make good decisions on the information they got. And I guess that's kind of, all we can do is just be honest to ourselves and make those best decisions. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to have regrets. We all have them. Like, it's just inevitable.
Yeah.
But learn from as many people as you can around you, and there'll be certain things that sit well with you. And there's certain things that also don't sit well with you. So, for example, once I was in, I did some stuff with a group called You Gurus. That's run by a guy called Brent Weaver. He's been doing some stuff with
Heard of it.
Cloudways recently, right?
Yep. Heard of them.
So I was with Brent in Austin, Texas, with a group of other agency owners. That he was having a conference over there, and we're going around visiting these different agencies. And we visited this one particular agency that was doing some big government projects. And everyone else walked out and they're like, wow, imagine doing those projects. Like, they're 2 million, 3 million, 5 million. Wouldn't you love that? And I just said, no, I don't want to do that. And they're like,
Yeah.
what? Why? And I'm like, I just don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of doing a 4 or 5 year project. I don't like that. I like 10 to 15 week projects.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, really?
Mm-hmm.
But you do them all the time. And I'm like, yeah, because I like them.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that kind of length of time.
Yeah.
And they were just like, oh, wow, really? You wouldn't want that? Wow. And they couldn't understand why, but I wasn't going to pretend.
Right.
I'm just going to be completely honest. So
Mm-hmm.
from that point on, I just realized, hey, I'm not going to go and pitch big projects just to say, whoop-de-doo, I made $1 million on something, and now I get just as much joy out of selling, one of my little $10, $15 plugins that clears out the scheduled action log, as I do winning other types of projects. Like, I just enjoy, sticking to and being true to myself. I happen to be lucky that is something that's monetizable.
Yeah.
Some people being true to themselves and what their truth to themselves is not monetizable. Like, I don't know what you do then. I wasn't in that situation, but yeah, thankfully I'm in a place that it's monetizable, and I just enjoy doing those projects. There's plenty of them. I do them well, and yeah, we do lots of care plans and stuff like that too. So it's I think that answers what you were after.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I'm seeing an extremely high level of self awareness as well. That's the word I was looking for there. Like the fact that you can just tell people, you have like a group of agencies there and like, oh, $2 million projects, and you're like, no, no, that's not for me. And like you can give them perspective on like, I'm sure you could sit down with one of those people and be like, literally, like this is if you might think that you want that because you see the number, right? But like you can give them perspective of like, no, this is actually what your life will be like. Maybe you would like that. Maybe you would like to, see a check for 5 million and know that you're going to be doing that for the next 4 years. But like you have to understand that like it's like you can express to them that they don't know what they don't know, and like that's
Mm,
kind of that could be dangerous depending on, if that's if they actually wouldn't like doing that, it could be quite a shitty 4 years for them if they actually signed up for a project like that or something. So I don't know.
yeah.
It's really interesting that you've came to that conclusion and you've just stuck with it and not just done things because other people think that they might be a good idea or something. Because I could definitely see myself being, oh, I have $1 million project. It's like not fully wrapping my head around how bad that could possibly actually be if I don't like doing that. So
Yeah, well, and that's exactly it. Look, when I finished off some of those big projects, the biggest year we had in the business, like I said, we turned over, just a bit over $1 million. I'd worked so hard, and I'd flown out of Sydney on a late Friday night flight, got home here, and I had to go out to our family farm. Now, our family farm is, 3,500 acres, a
holy cow.
couple of thousand sheep, like, all this sort of stuff. And we go out there. I had to ask my wife to drive because I was feeling so tired from the crunching that I'd been doing. We get to the farm and I couldn't make it to the house. I'm walking along the lawn and I'm like, my brain just won't do this, bub. I need to lie down. And I lied on the lawn. I grabbed the soccer ball, which is, what I always kicked around for the dogs, right?
Yeah.
So I was covered in chew marks and all that kind of stuff. I didn't care. I just lied on the lawn, put my head under the ball, and just like passed out.
Oh my gosh.
And I was there for like hours. And the dogs didn't know what was going on. They're just all just standing around looking at me going, is he going to kick the ball? Is he going to kick the ball? Is he going to kick the ball? And a couple of hours later, I came to and I'm like, man, what just happened? And I just felt like it just occurred to me like your brain's a muscle. And I'd worked it to the point where it was like the brain just had to rest. And I came away from that and I thought, why am I doing this? Like, I don't get that much joy out of this project. And that's when I kind of realized, like at that point, hey, this isn't something that's sustainable for me. Like I work super, super hard. The other side of it is you have to actually pinch yourself to rest. I don't have my watch on now, but my Fitbit goes off every hour and I stop. When I put my music on and I'm sat here, I have a Pomodoro timer, I stop. I make myself stop because, when I first started learning to code, the hardest thing was to pull myself away from the computer to go to the toilet
Wow.
because I was just so into it. It's like, became almost like a gaming addiction. So I was just like, man, you just can't work like that. That's not right. So I was like, hey, you need to recognize that, hey, a strength can become a weakness just as easily. And you got to suit things into your life the right way. And I guess because I'm a bit of an intense person, I work intensely on stuff. That intensity comes at a cost. And it means if I'm working on something for a couple of years, that intensity that I bring to the role, like it just takes a lot out of you. So I guess that's another reason, why I look at it that way. And it's not that big projects are positive or negative. It's just finding where you sit and making sure you have the self governance and awareness, like you were saying, to make sure that you deal with that kind of stuff, because you can very easily become someone who's crippled over, hunched over, sore back, sore eyes, sore this, sore that, health problems because you've just neglected to do the right thing. And I just chose early on, and particularly at that time, made myself aware, hey, I'm not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not going to let myself live that way.
That's I feel like there's a little bit of a an interesting yin and yang or like a juxtaposition there. So like you have to find your superpower. If I was thinking of like, your approach to kind of like navigating this, you have to find your superpower and you have to lean into it. But at the same time, you've definitely done that. And there's been times, I guess, where you kind of leaned into it, like you said, too intensely. And then that kind of starts to backfire like as well. Like, you literally like just like can't move at the farm, when you get home after like the big project and stuff like that. So like there's like an interesting, you got to go hard, you got to lean in, but you can't go too hard that you
Yeah,
overdo
you've got
it.
to understand the parameters of who you are. And I
Yeah.
mean, that self awareness is super important. I learned a lot of that as well because my eldest brother in law, he's an Olympian, a marathon runner.
Jeez.
And, you know, Scotty was training up for one of the Olympics and he was running so much that his hips were falling apart.
Mm.
And it was just like, Scott, you can't train like that. You have to work out what works for your body. Just because, some of these other guys can run at that level doesn't mean you can train at that same level. Now, he ended up running in the Commonwealth Games, running in the Olympic Games in Rio, did amazing stuff, but he still had to learn, like, hey, what suits me? Marathons where you're on the edge, of what's humanly possible. And being around him, and we ended up collaborating on a number of things for sports stuff here in Australia, and that really helped. Like, and I realized that's an immense privilege to have an Olympian in the family, that you get
Yeah.
to sit down and talk to.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was an immense privilege, and that helped me understand a lot more and learn a lot more. Because hey, it's what he's performing and living on the edge of what's physically possible, but I was kind of pushing myself on that mentally possible side for myself, and yeah, I found some of those boundaries and realized, like, hey, it's no fun passing a boundary that you're not physically meant to.
Mhm.
Not
Yeah.
fun at all. Don't do it. I do not recommend it. Don't try and code for as long as you can. You'll just hurt yourself. Stay within the boundaries, and make sure you feel good every single day, because when you're feeling great and you're at your best physically, mentally and stuff, you just get so much more work done, and the work's better quality. Coming at things with a good attitude always helps. I love what Zig Ziglar said. He said, having a great attitude won't get you everything, but it's sure as heck going to be better for whatever you are doing than
Mhm.
coming at it with a bad attitude. And you can't have a great attitude and all of a sudden, I'm 6'3", I guess sort of 250 pounds.
Mhm.
I'm never going to be a jockey. It doesn't matter how
Mhm.
much I'm
Yeah.
I'm positively thinking about that. I'm not going to be a jockey.
Yeah.
I'm too big.
Mhm.
It's just not going to happen.
Mhm.
So part of understanding that as you guys grow your agencies and as you start to develop as a business owner really does help. And I find that when you understand who you are and where you kind of where your strengths and weaknesses are, you're going to be in a position where you can better grow a team and also better work with clients, because you know when to say no. Sometimes clients push on you to do a job and you don't want to do it, and
Mhm.
you can say no.
Yeah.
I've had to do that. Clients come to me and say, "Hey, Matt, can you do this, and this for us?" And I just go, "No, no, I don't do that."
Yeah.
And
It's an
that takes
important
a that
skill.
takes a brave choice,
Yeah.
to say no. Everyone always says, never say no to the client. It's like, but hey, if I can't deliver for them, say no, because it's not who you are.
Yeah. 100%. And like going back to kind of the team building thing. So like again, if we're talking about it, like you have your superpower, obviously you got to stay within your parameters. How have you navigated over the years, like kind of like mentally, and then also putting it into business practices, like where like, okay, I'm very good at programming and developing, but I need a design person, or I need, or even more internal aspects of the business. Like I don't know if you handle like all of like the other operational like mundane things, but like what was your framework for delegating the things that you that didn't energize you?
Um, well, number one, if I was really procrastinating to do something,
Mm-hmm.
and then when you do it, it only takes you 5 minutes, but you find that no matter how many times it takes you 5 minutes, you always procrastinate to do it.
Mm-hmm.
They're the things that I start to optimize first.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this is a great tip for anybody out there. If you find that you're looking at something and it always takes you a while to mentally get yourself to do it, it's probably something you either need to process or you need to delegate quickly.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones to do first. So for me, that was books, quotes, um, design back and forth, that kind of stuff. They were the three big ones: quotes, books, and back and forth on design tweaks. Luckily for me, my wife did accounting. We met at the bank, right? She
Nice.
really loves repeating process. She loves that. She doesn't like processes she's never done before. She likes to learn something and do it many, many times. She loves doing that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So we just ended up with a real grace between the two of us, because the things that I like doing, she doesn't like, and the things she likes doing, I don't like. Just ended up being a good personality match on that side. So that meant that the books and the design back and forth, I've already got someone for that. For the quote side of things, what I did is I made a process for quoting that made it quicker for me. So I used a thing called Bid Sketch. I've been using it for years. Hardly anybody still uses it. It was something that I got back in those Guru days,
Hmm.
and I just made this template and said, okay, what does the client understand? I can't say install plugin, this plugin, that plugin. So what do I call that? Let's just call that website setup. How much is that generally going to cost me? Well, there's kind of like 4 or 5 tiers of those. Let's just do that setup.
Hmm.
Let's say project management. How much time do I spend on project management and all that back and forth? That's variable. So let's put an allocation of hours in against that, because that can sometimes bite me. And we put a term around that. What else do they need? Oh, how many pages? Well,
Hmm.
hey, we know there's 50 pages. Let's do that. Do they want an SEO and analytics set up and all that kind of stuff? Yep, let's put that in. And I just turn things down into what I can actually pitch to the client, and made a process for quoting. Now I get a quote in, it takes me about 20 minutes to write it.
Hmm.
And then I've got a process for that. I still don't really love it, but I made a process so I could do it quickly, because it was still one of those things that was difficult to delegate, because I tried delegating it a couple of times, and the guys really just struggled, because you do need a bit of experience to write an accurate quote. Um, so that was a thing that was difficult to delegate. So I just processed it. And then, there's care plans and other things like that I've done the same thing with over the time. And again, we just write simple processes. Processes aren't checklists. It's important to remember. You don't have to, a process doesn't have to be that granular,
Hmm.
but you can have a process with multiple checklists. So we just kind of did it that way. And it's the same way that I've hired. I've just tried to find people that do lots of interviewing, try to get people to do kind of a bit of contracting stuff, make sure I'm very sure of someone if they've got a full-time job and I'm asking them to leave that to join me,
Hmm.
because you can't 2 months in go, hey, it's not working out, you just left a job that was real good,
Hmm.
and now you don't have a job. you know
Hmm.
so just those kinds of things, taking responsibility. Yeah, but I don't think I've been real good at building a team, like, just to be honest. I don't think I've been great at that.
Hmm.
um, it takes a certain type of person to be a really good team leader. And for small teams, I've been okay, but the bigger the team is, the harder I've found it.
Okay. Did you ever experiment like when you were at your peak with like, like you said, like 10, 15? Like, did you ever, were you always like the manager though? Like of them? Like the lead
No,
still? Okay.
no, I had my team managing other people. Yep.
Okay.
And that worked okay to a degree.
Hmm.
That's when I had no choice at that point to do that. I had to. So I would just have the team manage stuff, you know?
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I just had no other choice. Yeah.
Gotcha. Do you, do you, do you like business? Like, I mean, because this is a question I think like a lot of people need to ask themselves in this industry. Like, do you like business? Do you like being the, I don't know if manager is the right word, but like obviously it seems like you've had success with that, but it seems like it's not the thing that like really drives you obviously. So the small team just makes total sense. But like how do you see that if you're thinking about like you get a young like person that wants to that has a skill, wants to build a business and like you tell them like what are some things that you should constantly be like thinking about in your own minds? Like do I enjoy managing people? Do I enjoy telling people what to do or do I just enjoy the technical thing? Like where do I fall in there? I feel like that's a really interesting thing to think about.
Yeah, it is. And look, I mean, it's very difficult for me to come at it from the other perspectives of different people types, because I haven't spent enough time with different types of people to know. There is a few agency owners and things, of course, that we work with that we've got very long-term relationships with. Each one of those individuals, when I talk with them about these kinds of things, I always just really say, if at the end of the day, there's certain types of tasks that make you really tired or you procrastinate over a lot, that helps you understand who you are. Now, as you start to grow, you start to identify things. Now, for me, that means that overall business stuff, um, I'm reasonably good at it because I was a business analyst,
Hmm.
but it does fatigue me a lot. So the thing is, like, if I spend a whole day just doing business stuff, reports, different things like that, I have a much higher level of fatigue at the end of the day than if I've been doing coding and things like that. It's not that either of them are harder than the other. It's just that because of the way my brain works and the talent kind of approach of things, it's just a more fatiguing thing. So, you can either try and game that within yourself to work out why that's happening, use processes and things, or you can hire. And I guess that's kind of the way I've approached it. But yeah, I don't know at the end of the day. I really don't know what the best way for people to approach it to get the best results for them. I'd just say take in the advice and see what jumps out at you. Each person's just too individual to give kind of general advice there for me. I don't have that to give. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's. I mean, I think it's still good advice. I mean, really, I think like the fallback is just kind of understand yourself, and then kind of go from there. See what sticks. Like, see if there's other. Honestly, too, like maybe like just hearing that from you, and then hearing about your experience. Maybe your experience and your personality type isn't exactly like them. Like everybody's different, but I do think there's probably like similar people. So like maybe there's people that are like again just like you that have the technical prowess and the technical superpower, and then like your experience and their experience, while not exactly the same, is probably kind of similar versus somebody that's like again like the example earlier, like just wants to build a business, doesn't care about the technical stuff. Maybe there's somebody out there that makes more sense, to kind of like there's a more similarity there. So I think there's
Yeah,
options.
and I think as well, like it comes down to who you partner up with and stuff as well. Like there's so many different aspects to it. Um, but you're 100% right. It just takes a bit of time to understand who you are and what you want to do, and also setting your success parameters.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of people who are out there listening to this, if you could do WordPress sites and make $250,000 a year and, build up 100K to say 120K of recurring revenue. So you're billing 10K a month reliably on care plans, and you're doing generally around 10K a month on new builds. You've got a pretty good business there.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yep. 100%.
And that can give a lot of people a pretty nice life that they're quite happy with the freedoms they want.
Yeah.
Now, the last thing you want is to build a business that's a ball and chain around your neck,
Mm-hmm.
that makes you feel less free and more restricted. So yeah, that's kind of, I think, just take an honest think about it for yourself and go, hey, what does my success look like? And take on the small thing first, because a lot of people go in 5 years, I want a $10 million business. It's like, well, what are you going to do this week to get there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And start going hard at it, because if you don't really really nail in, you'll be years down the track and you won't have anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's the same with building a plugin. It's the same with building anything, doing any project at all. Like, you've really got to get moving fast. Move fast. That was something that I listened to a podcast on the Freemius channel, from the guy that ran Yoast, and that was one of the things that he said was, hey, move faster. Always move as fast as you can and stay on what you're doing and move as fast as you can, because before you know it, things get away from you and you end up with a plugin. Like, I've got a couple of them I'm trying to finish off. Oops, sorry.
Mm.
I've got
Yeah.
a couple I'm trying to finish off, and they've been sat there for like a year, and that's what I was saying to you before. Like, things are a bit quiet here in Australia. I'm just going to nail into those over the next couple of weeks and get them published, because otherwise it'll never happen. If I don't really get purposeful with it, they can easily slide.
Yeah. 100%. Um, I mean, again, from all the stuff we're saying kind of like runs in line, but from like kind of a linear perspective in my mind, we talked about the background. We talked about kind of like the overall agency experience and things like that. When you and I talked on the phone the other day, we were kind of you were giving me all sorts of good like nuggets and just like this conversation, and there was a couple things in there that stood out to me as far as like we talked about the high level of like kind of the structuring and like the almost the psychology that you have to have as a business owner if you want to not like burn out and stuff like that, and make sure that you're maybe delegating properly or just doing what you love, right? But the pieces that from an operational perspective, like process repeatability, like making sure that you're concise in like your offering and all those types of things, that seems like that's also something that you've been able to like leverage in your businesses, again, specific in your business specifically, like with the process stuff and the repeatability of all that. So like, is there things that speak out to you there that like, or like, stand out to you that maybe that you would think that have really pushed you to, just a better level?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think, look, when it comes to WordPress, you're building WordPress, we've got the yet another plugin syndrome,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
There's so many plugins and themes.
Yeah.
And when you first start, the temptation for me at that time was to go on Envato, find a theme or whatever that looked close to what the client wanted, and leverage that to go ahead and build a WordPress site.
Hmm.
Man, that was straight up just a karate kick to the face,
It's,
like self kick. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Whack. Like, oh
Yeah.
man. And it quickly unraveled because of the care plan side of things.
Hmm.
I had Flatsum, Enfold, B theme, this theme,
Yeah.
Avada theme, all sorts of stuff.
Hmm.
And as we were going through that, it was painful to do the updates. And then we found Divi, and Divi at that point was going really well. It was quite a good tool. We found it and we said, hey, we can build most of our clients' sites with this.
Hmm.
Let's just get a stack that's reliable. So we just went, okay, let's use Divi, let's use advanced custom fields, let's make our own little blocks and things like that. Let's use gravity forms every time. And we ended up with this stack and way of building websites that we just started repeating and churning out. And it works really well for small to medium business because we knew if we build this with Divi, we know exactly what we're getting. We're not going to hit any weird technical thing and we can deliver it. Bang, 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 bang. We started churning those out.
Hmm.
Before we knew it, we ended up with, all these Divi sites. And I ended up doing quite a lot with building custom plugins and all that kind of stuff for them. And we ended up having a bit of influence in that community. But then as time shifted, we found, hey, Block Builder comes out, we want to do something there. We started doing a lot of things with Astra. And then we started building everything that way. All the new sites came in, Astra. And that allowed us to make money out of care plans. Because if one bug comes up in Divi, we know it before we go and update another 50 sites. If a bug comes up in Gravity Forms, we know it before we go and update 50 sites. Whereas if you've got one theme with one plugin only used once, you go and run that update. What you learned can't be used again for another website, and you end up with too much of this kind of troubleshooting, problem solving mindset on something that should be processable. So that's a big tip I tell anybody out there now. Number one, don't skimp on the hosting. Just use WP Engine or one of the big guys that really know what they're doing, because most clients, the $30 a month doesn't mean that much anyway, but it saves you a heck of a lot of time.
Hmm.
And then secondly, pick a stack and get really good at it. There's a lot of stuff you can do with Cadence or, Elementor, whatever suits your fancy, but just pick one and get super good at it. And then pick one cache setup, get really good at it. Pick one search tool, get really good at it. One type of form, get really good at it. And that means that when you've got 50 sites all using the same thing, if one bug comes up in one site, you can use that knowledge and that gain to improve over everything. And that's efficiency. I've got one thing that was improved here. I learned something and I used it 50 times over. That's how you get efficiency in care plans and how you do it well. If I was going to sell care plans and every single site I get's different, it's really hard to do it. Because you get one thing that's Beaver Builder, another thing is Elementor, another thing's Divi, another thing's Cadence, another Blocksy, a Stackable, a this, a that, a Bricks, a Blocks. There's
It's a
so
lot.
many things. You can't learn it all. It's too hard. So you just gotta kind of pick your stack, stick to it, and make sure you focus on getting the result for the end client. My clients don't care. They don't care if it's Blocksy or Stackable or Cadence or Elementor. They don't care. They just want a website that works, that they can do the SEO on, that they can make sure that they're going to get the results with. So to them, they don't care. So we just stick with making sure that we do something that we know we can support. And the second thing I do when I'm doing that is I always think, okay, if I do have to hand this over to another developer, are they going to love me or hate me for it?
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
Because the number of WordPress sites I've inherited that are just completely bad,
Hmm.
because there's 5 contact form plugins. You don't know what one's used where. They got 3 different pop-up plugins. They got
Yeah.
all sorts of random WooCom bits and pieces, and you look at it and you're like, man, where do I even start?
Hmm.
So I just focus on single responsibility and just think, when I'm building this, if somebody else came along and had to use this site, Are they going to be able to understand it? Am I using the tool the way it's meant to be used? And if you do that, then it means that if somebody inherits it, they might have a different way of building something, but they're going to understand pretty quickly, hey, this is the way you did these things. I get it. And I can then support this particular website or care plan it.
Yeah, 100%. Evan says here, nothing worse than looking at your old site you built on a builder that you haven't touched in years. Touching Divi now is painful after using bricks. Yeah, I know the feeling of doing that. And Matt, you brought up kind of like a really interesting point there that I think sometimes gets overlooked a lot is that clients don't really care like what you're using. I mean, obviously there's like a large like debate and conversation that I am occasionally into of like, should clients like edit their site, should they not? If you want to touch on that, we can. But more specifically though, the question that I have for you is, you're somebody that has dealt with a wide variety of client types, like people that, whether it's like, $5,000, $150,000, $1 million, obviously, maybe not in
Mm-hmm.
WordPress, but specifically like you've dealt with different levels of clients, whether it's small business, micro business, enterprise, medium, whatever. What are some of the high level things though that if you're talking to an agency, like what should you expect at those different levels, or like what questions do you need to ask yourself to say like, hey, I like dealing with this rather than this. Who should I go after? Like what some of the main differences?
Mm.
Obviously there's a lot there, but
Well, first, let's just touch on that little point just with client editing for a sec.
yeah,
I would say 80% of my customers never log into the website to do an edit.
interesting.
They don't even want to.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
They just don't want to. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the thing. Like sometimes we debate this stuff heaps. Oh, the
Yeah.
client should have this, the client should have that. Some clients just don't want to.
Mm-hmm.
So just remember, like, there's plenty out there. We have a dedicated email queue that gets
Mm-hmm.
sometimes 60 or 70 requests in a day with
Mm-hmm.
simple edits
Mm-hmm.
that I don't really touch them. My wife looks after it and the rest of the team, right? Julius looks
Mm-hmm.
after it as well.
Yeah.
When that stuff goes bigger and smaller, like, sometimes we end up taking on some extras. But honestly, like the number of small edits we get all the time and just doing them fast, there's heaps in that
Yeah.
because some clients just don't want to do it. So we don't have to think that, hey, is there a debate of handing it over to the client? There's no debate. If the client wants that, you can give that to them. They just have to be willing to do it. If they can't watch a Loom video, then they're not going to be able to log in and do anything. Sometimes we're afraid they're going to break the site. You just tell them beforehand, hey, here's a video about what you need to know. If you break the site and you have to contact us, that's a paid charge. You have to pay for us to fix it.
Yeah.
Or you can just restore it and start again. Like
Right.
we'll do a number of free restorations a month from then on pay,
Yeah.
and they'll very quickly know like if they're going to edit or not.
Let me
So then
ask
we have
you.
other customers that edit a lot and they do repeating things. So we do Loom videos, the repeating stuff that they do a lot. And I generally say to a customer, if you're not going to do something weekly or at the very least monthly,
Mm-hmm.
don't delegate it. You're better off with a retainer package. Like, don't do it yourself. Get
Mm-hmm.
us to do it. If it goes down to something you're doing weekly, then you will get the skill set to do that well. So then train them how to do that weekly update. But if it goes anything more than like less than monthly, you're better off delegating it because we do that kind of edit every single day and we've got a skill set and it's just cheaper to get us to do it.
That's a good point. Let me ask you a question though, because this is another one of those things that I always read in between the lines, and I think everybody that talks about this, there's got to be a preface. You have to preface that answer, which is a good answer, with something. So let me ask you this question: of all of your clients, right? You said 80% of them never log in, 20% of them, maybe have certain things that they can do, and you show them how to do it. Makes total sense logically. The one thing that I think I would love to ask you though is, of those clients, what level of clients are they? Are they micro businesses? Are they small businesses? Do any of those people have like marketing teams built into their agency, or are they like just like like is it a site for like a plumber, and like you can't really expect him to do it? So give me an idea of like what size clients those are for the most part.
They vary. I mean, look, we've
Yeah.
got people who are large multinational agricultural companies and large medical groups that their marketing team don't want to do the edits. We do all of them.
Okay.
Internal marketing teams, multinationals, send all the edits to us. There's others that have designers and marketing teams that log in and do edits. And there's others who are smaller businesses, like smaller, I'm meaning, less than 10 million turnover, with, a small team, and they're logging in and doing edits because they got e-com or something, and they're having to keep things updated and stuff like that. So they do vary a lot. We've got some others as well, like schooling institutions, educational institutions, things like that, where they're logging in and doing a lot more edits. And some of them, they do all sorts of stuff and we hardly hear from them. We're just doing their care plan. They contact us when they need a bit of SEO or something, or when they've broken things and they pay us to do a bunch of like bigger changes to the site, So it varies because every customer is different. And that's why I was saying to you before, the one thing you can take for certain is that everyone's different. And sometimes you do get a gun in a particular business who jumps in and can do all sorts of stuff. But that person then leaves and the next person comes in and they can't. So, it does vary so much, Mark. But honestly, I would say 80 to 90% of the sites we have on care plans right now, the clients never log in and edit a thing.
Okay, so then pretty much every time you build, then you kind of have that discussion basically, and you kind of recommend them one way or the other based off of what it's.
Yeah, we just say anything you're doing weekly, we recommend we train you on it. Anything you do monthly and every month, we would say as well, it's worth taking a look at and seeing if you enjoy doing it. Anything that's less than that, you're best off incorporating a 10 to 12 hour retainer over the year into your care plan, and then just send those changes through to us and we'll just look after them.
Well, it seems like a very logical approach. I might adapt mine to kind of do that because I kind of like recommend that they don't touch the stuff because, like, again, it's most of the time it's easier, especially with the clients that I'm dealing with. So, but I do think that's a good way. It's like literally just be honest with them and be like, hey, if you have somebody do this stuff, we can kind of teach you how to do it in a way. But
And just make sure you charge properly for your education, Mark. Like we spent time learning how to do stuff, making a process for somebody and showing them how to do something and making sure they stick to that process is important. So you just say that. Say, hey, look, training in IT is not cheap. Like a one-day course might cost, $2,000-$3,000
Right.
because I've got to prepare this training and they've got to sit down, make sure the person comprehends and understands it. And it might only be 1 or 2 hours, but we just make sure we charge enough and give them the controls that they need to do the job well so they don't break the site. And if they're not willing to do that, quite often when they see the bill for that straight away, they go, well, gee, how are we going to get value out of this for how much we're updating? We are better off with a retainer because then we get professionals doing it,
Yeah. I think this all of this obviously starts to kind of like spill over into the website care plan situation, which a lot of people need to continuously remind themselves is super important for a recurring revenue standpoint, like we talked about. Before we get there, I want to talk. I would love to hear more about, again, the stuff we chatted about offline the other day of the way that you explained to me what you do now, like your stack that, like includes like cadence. And I think like you said a Blocksy at one point, like if you could unpack that for me and tell the viewers, like, it sounds like you're doing a lot of like, because you have the superpower and the skill set that a lot of other people don't do, like you're leveraging like a lot of API integration stuff and those types of things that other people can't do. Like you literally said that people come to you specifically for that. So what's like most of your typical projects look like now based off of like where you've set yourself up to be in this market?
Yeah, the integration space is a big one, Mark. So, that's really what we spend a fair bit of time doing is customization things.
Yeah.
So, just like Evan here said, dynamic data CPTs, but also API integrations. So we're talking things like where, someone's customized their Salesforce, they've got big membership systems and they need that API to synchronize regularly.
Yeah.
So I write code that does that, uses background processing and, web hooks and all those other technical things to make them work. So I do quite a bit of that. There's other ones like, pulling in CSVs of data sets and stuff, updating TripAdvisor APIs, all sorts of stuff like that. There's quite a lot of that I end up doing. So yeah, they're kind of, I guess, the high value projects that we get. And that's what I mostly work on is those kind of more technical things. And some of those can also be just specific customizations for WooCommerce or things like that. Like, hey, we've got a specific type of client that needs a specific type of thing for a wholesale sale system.
Yeah.
They need custom filters that do stuff, custom sort things, certain types of shipping that's only available to certain customers, all those sorts of things. So I end up building all sorts of little plugins all the time. I mean, today we've got so I've got a server upgrade. We've got some SEO stuff that I'm doing for a client. We've got another one where they want a WooCommerce custom shipping thing that I've got to investigate. So they're my big 3 jobs today. Yeah. So, and then I'm chasing up these guys with a big Salesforce integration for a large company that does CEO training and things. They've got about 600,000 members on their site, all talking to Salesforce with different types of WooCommerce membership kind of sites, with LearnDash and different types of stacks, and certain types of members have to be synchronized with certain portals for different countries and regions and stuff. So they're going to have custom API setups. In the WordPress, it talks to the API of Salesforce, and Salesforce sends webhooks back to WordPress, and all that data kind of synchronizes and works itself out with all these intelligent little synchronization processes through APIs and stuff. So yeah, things like that.
Okay. So that's like kind of your main, obviously that's again the superpower type thing. That's like the main piece that you're kind of doing a lot of times. It's what people know you for. Are you also doing smaller stuff too at this point, or no?
Oh
Like
yeah.
this.
Yep. Kate's got my wife. She's just got product updates and stuff today for clients. A couple of different things where a client just accidentally changed a tag, and all the links in their menus and stuff. They changed something from like beacon to beacons, like pluralize something. And she's got to go and fix up that mess and work out what to do, redirects, etc. That came in yesterday. Just things like that. So they're all ongoing. We don't have any sort of new web builds right now, but we're chasing up on a couple of different deals. So, and they're for various manufacturing businesses and that kind of stuff. So I'm helping some of my clients pitch on those, mostly in the manufacturing and construction space at the moment. We've got a couple of those, which I just got to chase up with our agency partners. So they'll be full site builds that we should get pretty soon, because our end of financial year is 30 June. So normally we get a couple of deals that get rushed through at this time of year, and we bill them up front so that client can claim them on their tax.
That's a good strategy there.
So we do a bit of a push. I'll do a push early next week to all our clients locally and say, hey, do you want to pre-buy any retainer hours? Do you want to do any upgrades? This kind of stuff, because you can claim it on tax as an expense for IT.
Wow.
So there'll be a push early next week. And sometimes I have government clients that come through and say, yeah, we've got some money that we need to spend. We don't know what we want, but can you just bill it and we'll think of it later?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I have a few like that.
Got to start doing that. Wow.
But again, these things happen over time, Mark, once people start trusting you, because they just go, hey, let's just give Matt 10 grand and we'll work out how we're going to spend it later. He'll make good value with that for us.
Yeah.
So, it's been nice to have those. Like I was pinching myself when they started happening, but they do happen. And over time, when you build rapport with your customers, like some of these customers have been customers of mine for over 10 years now. Like, and when you think about the net value, some of like that particular customer, they must have spent $700,000, $800,000 with us.
Wow. Yeah.
Just one customer. And that's why I say to everybody, and that started with a $5,000 website. And we just looked after them over years, and now they've spent hundreds with us. So just remember to everybody, just because you've got these small websites doesn't mean they can't become big things. Like, look at who the customer is, understand that, build trust. And before you know it, like those guys that we did that $1 million project with, the first one I did was like 8,000.
Yeah.
So just walk the walk and back yourself, and over time you'll end up with bigger and bigger projects. But also be honest with yourself as well. I think a lot of people call themselves WordPress developers when they're just installing plugins. That's not really a developer in my mind. You're a WordPress administrator. and you're able to build websites and stuff, but that's not development. If you're calling yourself a developer, you better know how to write a bit of code and
Yeah.
JavaScript and CSS and stuff. And certainly, if you like, you're building bigger things like those API things,
Yeah.
you'll be found out pretty fast if you try to, just use Zapier or hooks or something.
Yeah, that's really interesting. The label thing is always difficult. Like, you're designer, developer, admin, webmaster. There's like it's just crazy how the terminology just gets thrown around, and it's difficult there.
Mm,
Um, and then, so let me ask you this question though. So, like, let's say that the projects that you said you were chasing with the new builds, right? So, like, if you just got like a full new build website right now, and even like more recent ones that you've gotten, you used to be a Divi guy and you've moved to like mainly Cadence, right? So, like, kind of
that's right.
closer to like a core blocks experience basically. So
Yep.
there's a lot of conversation now in the WordPress community that, again, I am somewhat a part of it at times, because I was an Elementor guy and now I've moved to Bricks, but I'm keeping a close eye on like the core experience as it continues to like evolve and improve. And even,
Hmm.
things like, again, Cadence and stuff. But like, what was your specific justification for moving closer to core and doing that? Like, are you leveraging, like, is that help your workflow better because you don't have to like deal with like a page builder environment as much?
Um, well, Divi and Elementor we just found were just getting too slow.
Yeah.
That's what we were finding, and Elementor at the time had too much HTML to content ratio. It
Mm-hmm.
still has that a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and some of the block tools can have it as well.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got to be careful. Like when you think about it, the more HTML you have compared to your content, the harder it is to SEO optimize a site generally, because it takes more
Right.
effort for Google to crawl your pages, and as a result, that means that they crawl less of your pages over time. If you think
Mm-hmm.
about it, Google, they've not really come out and said this, but evidently they have a certain amount of processing power they can use to crawl every website. If you make your site harder to crawl because your pages have more HTML to content, then they're going to get less pages through that pipeline.
Mm. It's a
Pretty
really good
simple,
point, though.
right? So if you can,
I've
if
never
with
heard
the,
that, but that's a good point.
well, yeah, if you think about it, if a page, if I've got this much code, you know, for to describe a packet of pencils,
Yeah.
then Google has to go through all this to understand that. Whereas if instead I've got a page and the pencils are in it,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden they can get all these different pages of processing power come through, and they've got all of that.
Yeah.
So it's just a real simple way to think about it. How much are you shoving down the pipe of the Google bot for them to get the meaningful content out? The less HTML you have to content, the more goes through that pipe for every visit that bot comes along with.
Yeah.
So we looked at Cadence and it was pretty lean for that side of things. It was pretty fast. I did a video, Divi versus Cadence in terms of speed with Divi 4. And it was very obvious that, hey, you can push more through that pipe with Cadence. So we just found that and we're like, hey, this is easy. It's fast. It's got great tooling in its core package. Everything works well together and it updates well, right? We use Stackable and Astra. Man, the updates on those things used to break stuff all the time. That ultimate
Mm-hmm.
Gutenberg blocks, it's become Spectra now.
Mm-hmm.
We have a bit of pain on that. So we're always kind of looking. We did a bit of Bloxable and Bloxy and Stackable. Same sort of thing. We found Cadence, and the update cycle for care plans is easy for us as well. So right now, new client comes in, build me a website. It's 10 to 20 grand. Cadence, ACF, Gravity Forms, whatever. Bang, bang, bang. Been using Forms a bit lately,
Mm-hmm.
um, just because of the CRM stuff. But basically, yeah, just start the stack straight off and start building. Yeah.
That's one of the best points I've ever heard about, like, clean code output related to SEO. I mean, I'd never heard that point before, but it makes so much sense that, like, there's only so much you can shove through like the pipeline
Yeah.
of Google's crawling. That's
And they
sounds like a really
allocate
good
amount of
argument.
CPUs and processing per site. They have to. They can't just
Yeah.
keep crawling your site when you're making it hard for them.
Right.
So make it easy. And that's one of the reasons why, if we think about what SEO is, it's simply building trust with a search engine.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That they're just parameters of trust. The more they trust you, the more likely they're going to send you the best referrals.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So you give them what guarantees the best trust. Describe your image as well, name your files right, put your content together, make it load fast. They crawl more of your content faster. They trust you because you're giving them the information they need to trust you. And all of those things inevitably help your clients trust you as well. Everyone likes a fast website. Everyone likes them to load well on their mobile device and desktop. So, try and give people as lean a code as you can. Be
Yeah.
straight to the point, and your customers will thank you, and so will the search engines.
I think I have one more thing that I want to hit on, and then we gotta talk about the care plans because it's super important. But obviously, there's a lot of overlap. You said there are 10 ideal, or like a standard project, 10-20 grand with cadence, gravity forms, like the stack there, solid lean stack, good tools, concision, makes total sense. Everybody should have like a blueprint website basically that they just kind of they roll through. Do you does that from the quoting side of that, and like a typical project, nothing with super crazy integrations, but like that in that range, are you offering like like full discovery and like UX and UI? I know you made an interesting point on the call about the design thing, so I'm interested in hearing your deeper take on that. Like, what's that process look like on a simpler site like this?
Look, we our discovery is would generally be a free discovery for something of that size, because all we're doing is saying, hey guys, like, do you have a brand kit? Yes or no?
Mm-hmm.
How much content do you have that you can give us?
Mm-hmm.
If there's problems at that point, that's when we would do a paid discovery, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't have a strong brand kit, like, hey, these are our fonts, colors, that kind of stuff. Here's our brochures, and those brochures kind of like have a consistent look and feel to them.
Mm-hmm.
Then we know that we've got something where a brand hasn't been locked down very well, and we may have to discuss that with a client. Luckily for us, a lot of our deals that come through partner agencies, so most of the time they've got that stuff done. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if we've got a direct client that don't have any of those things, then sometimes we do a quick discovery to get that sorted out. But some of these clients, like, they're just like, hey man, we just want it to look great. Just go for it. And then we just do.
Yeah.
There's one that come to mind just as I was explaining that. Like, there's some medical clients, and they were just like, yeah, we got a logo. Just, here's a couple of photos. See what you can do. And we just went ahead and built a couple of pages based on some simple sort of page structures and stuff. Punched some of their existing content in, showed them the pages, and they were just like, yeah, that's great. Keep going. So you get a bit of a feel early on how picky someone wants to be with design. That back and forth on design is really what costs you on most projects.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to identify early on how picky does someone want to be in design, and then that's always an hourly charge. We allocate people a set number of hours within a project for branding and design, and then if they want to go longer, we just say, hey, look, design's such a personal thing. We can do as many designs as you like, but you just got to pay for them. So, if we have to go through 100 iterations and you're happy to do it and you want to spend, $50,000 on back and forth, you can do that. But then I'll always give them this one story, which is, hey, on your TV, how much branding is there? They go, not much at all. Why is that? Well, because I just use it to watch shows. So that's right. So the show's what's important, right? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, so on your website, what's the show? The show's the content. The content's what's important. The overall design and what you put around things is becoming more and more minimal. And that's why your content on a Facebook or a YouTube still does great things for your business, because the content is what matters, not the design around it. So let's try and keep that as simple as we can. We like to try and keep it as simple as we can. We make your content the hero at the end of the day so people can enjoy and access that content. That's why they're on your website. If we stay focused on that instead of getting caught up on if you've got a center or left aligned logo, how big your fonts are and colors of your font and all this sort of stuff, if instead we try to keep things as straightforward as we can, minimize those design things, make your content the hero, and then we spend time designing things that enhance your content, specifically why people visit your website, that's what you spend your design stuff on.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead and do that. And that's what's going to help you kick goals, because then you end up spending money where it's actually going to move your bottom line, which is engagement on content and turning that content browser, that engagement of some sort of liaison with your business, right? That encounter can move down the path towards a customer. But sometimes you can spend all this effort on logo design, colors, fonts, etc., and it's not going to move you. So I always tell that story to a customer, and then they go, yeah, okay, I get it. And I think, if you have great content in a simple design website, it's going to do better for you than fancy looking websites, which are lean on content. And I learned that from my time in agency. There was all these guys that, we did all sorts of cool stuff for Pizza Hut and Coke and worked with all the biggest brands doing all sorts of cool things.
Mm-hmm.
But, a lot of those sites only were successful because of the big advertising behind them, not because people were stumbling across them and using a discovery process to learn about a particular new product space or brand.
Yeah. I mean, those are great points there. Stick to the content. Content is the king of it. And yeah, you just see those trends now. It's just everything's becoming like a little bit more minimal. Obviously, there's still great design, but yeah, I mean, people care about your content if they're going to buy from you for sure. So,
Hmm.
so yeah. Let's talk about care plans, because I know that's like obviously a huge linchpin of business. Hopefully, there's a lot of people. Hopefully, the vast majority of people out there are utilizing the concept of a care plan, a maintenance plan, whatever you want to call it. I know that's something that you preach all the time. So, like, kind of maybe just give me like the high level of, obviously, like, when you like, did you start off with care plans? Did you come to know that, and then like how has it kind of evolved over time, your offer for them?
Yeah, look, years ago, one of the platforms I used was a tool called Business Catalyst for Adobe.
Mm-hmm.
And we were selling that and reselling the product.
Mm-hmm.
So when I came to WordPress, I knew clients don't want to go to crazy domains or GoDaddy or something and buy hosting.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big daunting thing for a lot of people. So just package it up,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how we started with it. And we just said, yeah, let's just package this thing up with all the licenses and make it easy for the client. And we started really just by saying, hey, you've got a smartphone there? They're like, yep. I said, okay, well, let's think of your website a bit like your phone. You have different apps that make your phone worthwhile, right? And they're like, yep, yeah, that's right. I'm like, well, they're kind of like your plugins and themes inside your WordPress site. They're a little bit like apps. Now what happens if you get a phone today and you never update it? And they're like, oh, well, I think it'd get hacked. It's like, yeah, it would. So you got to keep it updated. So what we do is we make sure that all the payment for those licenses for apps and things like that, the operation of that phone keeps going, it keeps ringing, the battery doesn't go flat kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we keep those security updates in there for you. And that costs this much per year.
These analogies are fantastic. I'm gonna
And then
steal
they
them.
just go, yeah, okay, I get that. I understand. So that's it. Simple.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's how most people come about this, especially in WordPress land. Obviously, the other building platforms might be a little different because just the situation's different with not being self-hosted. But yeah, I mean, we do have a pretty, I don't want to say it's easy at first, but like it's a pretty direct path to some recurring revenue for these types of things, because
Hmm.
you can just kind of, you could say like, hey, you need hosting, you need these things, let us take care of that for you. We'll put a price tag on it and you never have to worry about it. Have you ever Have you experimented with, when people think care plan, they're like, okay, that makes sense, the concept, but then they like actually have to craft it. Would you say you just have one care plan? Would you say you've tried tiers, or is it a custom per client? Like how do you
Yeah,
normally work that out?
we have tiers with inclusions. I actually rank most of the time number one in Google actually for WordPress Care Plan.
Hmm.
So you guys can take a look at my content, the way I've kind of set that up. But the large majority of our customers are having a degree of customization in their care plan.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's some clients that we have, they barely touch their sites. They've been with us for years and they're like on $50 a month because it's almost entirely automated.
Yeah.
It's only when something goes wrong that we got to look at it. And then there's other ones where you've got like heaps of sites, dedicated little server thing on Cloudways,
Yeah.
like a stack of 15 sites in there. And, they're spending like 15 grand a year for that care plan.
Mm-hmm.
All the sites are the same. They're like, spun up multi-site things. There's another one that we've got a pitch for at the moment. And that care plan is looking at sort of, around that 100 grand a year. For their care plan, because it's just big,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you can't really have like a sticker for that, so
Mm-hmm.
like it's Yeah, look, I think for care plans, I just really try to keep it as simple as I can. Some of my clients want to get more technical, like WP Easy's just said.
Yep.
You know, how do we deal with internal gurus? One of the ones I really like with the internal guru, I hope you guys like this, is people come in and go, "Well, I could just do that myself." I'm like, "Really? Do you cut your own hair?" And because most of these guys are blokes, right? And they're
Yeah.
like, "What?" I'm like, "Do you cut your own hair? Do you have clippers and scissors? Do you cut your own hair? Because it's easier, right? It's only
Hmm.
just cutting your hair." They're like, "No, no, I don't." I'm like, "Well, if just because something seems easy doesn't mean it is. What do you think would happen if you started cutting your own hair? How long do you think it'd take you to get good at it?"
Hmm.
And they're like, "I don't know." And Evan, yeah, I cut my own hair as well, right? I learned to cut my own hair. Because for me, like, it was just one of them things where I've got kind of a bit thick hair and stuff like that, right? So I cut my own hair. And some of those guys will say that. And I'm like, yeah, but you didn't learn it overnight. So just be prepared that if you're an internal guru, you want to do all this stuff, you've got to be prepared to do it.
Hmm.
Again, 10, 15 years of experience with the care plan side of things, I can tell you 95% of those people that try to self host or whatever, they're back with us
Hmm.
within a year.
Yeah.
Because they get hacked or they break something.
Yeah.
And they call up, yeah, Matt, you know that analogy? Yeah, you were right. Can we come back to you? I'm like, yeah, no problems. We'll sort it out for you. Happy to help you. And it does happen a lot. Quite often, what we often say to people as well, if they want to do their own, we could just say, hey, look, you've got to go and buy all these plugins. You've got to get this thing. You've got to do that thing, put this thing in, that sort of stuff. Go with WP Engine, share it with us, that sort of thing. And most of them do, but honestly, like, it's yeah, it's like every customer's different. There's always that person who's a pain in the butt. Like, you get them. There's also those people that are over keen on trying to do it themselves, that read an article, in PC World or something, and 2015, and they're like, "Oh, a website should only cost me $5,000. Everything should be editable," and it's just like, hey, there's always going to be those people. But just remember that if you stick to what you do, you explain things well. Quite often, some of those people can be your biggest champions, and they can
Yeah.
turn around.
Yeah. There's this comment from Brendan as well. There's he recently started including a page with a name and email of person in charge for all maintenance parts. Most of the time, my own name ends up on those lines because they don't want to. Yeah, like just trying to delegate, not like delegate, but like just make sure you know who's responsible for the things. Like if it's a website owner's manual or like like some sort of like document like that when you're talking about the who's in charge of what. And then your fellow countryman here, Matt looks way too young to have so much experience.
Mid-40s, man. But hey, look, that's a lot of people say I do look young, but I would put that down to what I learned on those big projects. Honestly, Mark, like,
Mm-hmm.
most days I'm on the golf course for, like, we have a golf course here,
Oh,
where I can just walk on at any time.
oh
We
my
don't have a
God.
heap of people. So during the day, I can just go there and go, yeah, I'm going to go play 3 or 4 holes. I do that regularly. I walk every day. I look after myself. I don't get too much sun. I put, cream on and things like that. Being
Mm-hmm.
here in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
I do look after myself, and I encourage all of you guys, like, look after yourself. You got one body, man. You don't want
Yeah,
to, get all wrinkly and old before your time. You can't get rid of it once you got it.
for sure. Yeah, duh. Golf course. You just walk on. That's so sick. Man, maybe I gotta move to Australia. Just
And our
play.
course is awesome, Mark. PGA
Yeah.
greens the whole way around. It's long. It'd be what, 7,000 yards from the tips.
Oh my.
Yeah,
Well,
it's and the greens are epic. Like, it is a really good course.
I'm
You
probably
know,
not good enough to play on that course, but if I'm
oh, you
ever
just
out
play
there,
from the
yeah,
yellows. Yellows is
yeah,
like, the front tees are probably what, I think that's about 5.5, 5.8 Ks. So 5,000. Yeah, it'd be about 6,000 yards.
wow,
So you take 1,000 yards off,
yeah,
bit under. It's a fun
mm,
course though. Like, it's
yeah.
really nice. Hardly any bunkers because the guys just didn't want to maintain the bunkers, because we get a lot of animals and stuff in them out here. So hardly
Yeah,
any bunkers. Nice. Like, they made like grass bunkers instead. So there's
yeah,
ditches with long grass in them.
yeah.
Pretty cool.
Amazing. WPZ wants to know where you're at in Australia. Say
I'm in
Parks, right?
Parks in the central west of New South Wales. Yeah.
There we go. You guys got to meet up.
Yeah, I'll try to get
Let's do
onto
it.
some of those meetups in the city. So we do have the Sydney meetup, and I'll be putting in to do some talks on the Sydney meetup as well. But any of you guys want to reach out, like man, just send me an email. Happy to jump on a call and have a chat with anybody.
Dope.
As Mark found, like I'm
Yep.
I'm very open to give advice to anybody, and happy to answer anyone's questions.
Yep.
I like giving back into this community. Without WordPress and the open source community, I wouldn't have a business. It's just that simple.
Yep.
So, we all should make sure that we're ready to put our hand up every now and then and just give a bit of time into things. It makes the community what it is. And it is a fantastic community out there.
Yep.
So I like to do my bit as much as I can.
100%, Matt. This has been fantastic, dude. Again, like I want to echo, I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom, your willingness to share it, your experience, and just, just couple with our call the other day. Can't tell you how grateful I am. I hope you guys in the comments, if you got something out of this, make sure you leave a like, hit Matt up. Make sure you go like his channel, MRKWP. Where else can people find you, Matt? What else you got going on? Anything you want to promote?
Oh, look, guys, just check out the channel. I'll be pushing stuff out. I'll be pushing some more plugins and things out over time. But hey, one thing I would say to a lot of people out there is don't be afraid to reach out and sometimes spend a bit of coin on a developer like myself. One thing I've noticed is everyone always focuses on the hourly rate, right? But the fact is I've worked with guys who are on 20 to 50 an hour, and I will code what they will spend 2 days doing something that I'll do in an hour,
Mm-hmm.
because it just comes down to that skill set. So just because, I'm $150 an hour,
Mm-hmm.
don't ever think that you're not going to get value out of that. You will. Just make sure you're specific about what you want, and just remember that if you contact someone like myself, you're gonna find out and go, hey, Matt just coded me a full plugin that's robust and does its job in 4 hours. It cost me, 600 US dollars, but I got something that's specific that does the job and is maintainable. Whereas you might go to somebody else who's on Upwork or something, you're going to spend $6 an hour, but 300 hours in, you're going to wish you would have poked yourself in the eye with a spoon instead of taking on that deal, because this person just doesn't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Um, and it's something just to keep in mind out there. Like, don't be afraid of reaching out to people like myself and some of the other gurus that are out there that are freelancy kind of people like myself, because you'll find we'll give you a solution. You're going to get what you wanted for the price, and it will be maintainable long term. You won't be regretting that deal. And if you do happen to even just go, hey, like, man, I got this difficult project. Is this even possible? Is this even a good idea? We'll be able to tell you very quickly, hey, watch out for that. That's going to bite you. That's got, a very
Yeah.
nasty bite. Watch out for that. And it's so worth it just to listen to people around you. I wish I would have had someone to do that, and I'm happy to do it. Like, but just
Mm-hmm.
don't. Because the thing is, when those things happen, it looks bad for WordPress as a whole. A lot of these IT guys go, oh, WordPress, that was crap. We ended up with this website, and nothing worked and this and that. And it just comes down to the wrong tools being used in WordPress. So, make sure you draw on that knowledge. And yeah, like I said, happy to reach out. Leave comments on my stuff in
Mm-hmm.
YouTube. I make a lot more videos. We'll be pumping out a lot more. And if you like the live format as well, let me know. I'm happy to do more lives with Mark, and
Oh, yeah.
send in your questions. We'll answer them. I'm happy to do that if that's what you want to do.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I want to echo that. Don't be afraid to invest in your business, regardless of its development or like paid plugins and things. That's the worst, is when you're just like trying to piece together a lot of things. And that's like Matt said, that's where the bad reputation side of WordPress comes from, because we look at this stuff and like, what is all this? Like, just piecemeal, like different small plugins or different like free software that you know can't say anything bad about it, but there's more robust ways to go about it, especially if you're trying to make a full blown business out of this. So
Hmm.
yeah.
I think a good way to think about it, Mark, is don't fight the plugin, what it's designed to do.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen things where people start fighting WooCommerce to try and bend it. It's like, guys, you're going the wrong way about doing this. You need to work with the tool, not
Yep.
against it. Don't try and make an iPhone a TV.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's kind of, just work with the tool.
Right.
Um,
100%. I think we got a couple here real quick. Evan, do you do license integrations for software?
Do you mean like Freemius stuff, Evan? That's what I use. So when I sell my plugins, I sell everything with Freemius. I've done some stuff before with like EDD, easy digital downloads, some WooCommerce stuff with license keys, but Freemius makes it all so easy for plugins. That's what I use. Um, yeah, so I hope that answers what you're after there. Freemius is what we use for selling plugins and themes.
Interesting. Then WP Easy. Does this mean you're moving to Australia so we're all in the same time zone? I'm gonna have to talk to my wife on that one. I don't know if she's gonna appreciate being so far away from her family. But yeah, I'll keep you posted there. And then Evan said, yeah, that's what he's looking for. So he's gonna ping you. Perfect,
Yeah, and I'm
guys.
in the
This
Freemius Slack groups and stuff like that. If any of you guys are in the Slack groups for WordPress or anything, you can find me in those too. But yeah, send me an email. Like happy to help. However, and Mark, yeah, happy to do this again if there's another set of things that come up or whatever for the community. Happy to help, and it's been a blast. Thanks for having me on. I
hell
really
yeah, brother.
appreciate it.
Matt, thank you so much, guys. Like I said, go check out Matt's stuff. Show him some love. Appreciate you being here, man. Thank you so much. We'll chat soon.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.